I copied your guys' disclaimer because I don't know how much financial information we'll be giving, but
there you go.
Better safe than sorry.
I mean, Rick loves saying it.
Rick has it memorized.
I do actually, because of the course, I wanted Rick to be like, "Oh man, I wonder if he'd be down to say it for you."
He even does it in different versions. A regular one, a really fast one.
Whatever y'all need, man.
You want to jump us off and do it?
All right. So, as always, our famous disclaimer, and that is that our content is intended to be used and must be used for educational and informational purposes only. It is very important to do your own research, aka do your own homework before making any investment decisions, and it should be based on your own personal circumstances. Investing has inherent risk, and past performance does not guarantee future results. You should take independent financial advice from a professional in connection with, or independently research and verify any information that you wish to rely upon, whether for the purpose of making an investment decision or otherwise.
Toma.
Yeah. So that right there was Rick Gonzalez, member of the Brown Skinvestors, the founding members. They're right here with me right now. That's I got Yesida Alvarado, got Christopher Dogra, and Rene Sanchez. What's up, guys?
Hello. How you doing, brother?
What's going on, brother? Good to be here with you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, man. I've heard you guys on the online radio station you guys were in recently, and then the other podcast you guys did, and I'm like, man, like, these guys look like they have a lot to say, and I'd want to see what more I could get out of them. So one of the first questions I definitely had was just like the name Brown Skinvestors. Like, I love the play of it being brown skin and investor, like 2 words, and then you guys were able to join it. Like, what inspired that name, and were there any other ideas you guys had that you guys just were like, nah, let's just go with this instead?
Man, I'll take that one. I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I guess I'll give myself a little credit. I have a little talent for coming up with these catchy company names. So, when it came to Brown Skinvestors, we definitely had some other ideas. I don't think I could even tell you what they were. But, to your point, right? Like the idea was, how do we create something for our community, and our community being people of color? And obviously, when we say brown skin, I think a lot of people think that we're referring just to the Latino community. Yeah. But we're really referring to the minority community as a whole, right? Yeah. Because a lot of minorities have that brown skin, or different shades of brown, if you will.
For sure.
So it really came from that. And the skin and investors kind of rolls together. Sometimes we have to correct one another because we'll be like, it's the brown skin investors, the brown skin investors. So, that can be a little tricky, but I think at the end of the day, it just really captures the root of what we're trying to do, and that's expose brown people to the different ways of investing that are out there.
Right on. That's and I kind of had a feeling that you were the one that came up with it, because I know you've always had these like really clever names for a lot of the projects you've worked on, even your music and everything. So I kind of wonder, man, I wonder if any of the other guys got together and like you guys were like getting that, but. Yeah, man, that's such
I had to beg him for approval, though.
It was difficult to come up with one. We had a lot of different ones. I mean, the other ones don't matter at this point. Yeah, we're really proud of the one we came up with, but it was definitely a collective effort trying to figure out what was the best. Rennie just had the best idea.
Yeah, right for sure.
But yeah, dude, I really love that name, Brown Skinvestors. I think it sounds very empowering to me, like when I hear it, and then I love how you guys have your slogan right now, right? Brown Wealth Matters. Do you guys ever have any conversations, when that slogan came about? Like, what was that like, that conversation?
It's you, bro.
All right, cool. So, really, it just kind of stemmed from, I guess it stemmed from a couple of things, right? So, Rennie came up with the idea of Brown Skinvestors, and we all bought in.
Yeah.
And then we got my cousin who lives in Colombia. She's the one who actually made the logo for us. So,
nice.
You see the different types of shades behind the BSV.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Say again?
No, I said I noticed that too, that it kind of felt like militant with the different shades, kind of camo.
Right. Yeah. So that kind of came from my Marine Corps background.
Nice.
But then that just kind of inspired. I started looking at all the different colors, and I was like, you know what? Like, bro, brown wealth matters. Like, we talk about all these different things that actually matter in the world.
Yeah.
Our wealth matters, right? Like, we are too focused on the wrong things, right? And we were all there at one point, right? We all took the money that we made and spent it on frivolous things. And they just kept coming back to me like, brown wealth matters, because that's what we keep talking about, is how do we create that wealth for people that look like you and I, like everybody sitting here.
Right on.
And it just stuck. Like, I think we talked about it once and it was like, yeah, it hit. And it just kind of resonated.
Yeah, that's dope, dude. Yeah, man. I mean, now that you brought that up about like how communities of color, especially us being Latino here, all 5 of us, we can all relate to the fact that, when it comes to like finding work and earning an income, like that's pretty simple. Like we can do that, like apply for a job, get the job, and then earn the income. I think a lot of the part that we struggle with is when the check comes, how we become good stewards of it. How do we be able to like manage it and all that? And I think that's where a lot of us fall in that in that pit, right, where it's just really bad. And I think that like there's definitely like a lack of education in that regard with like especially with Latinos, like just because I don't know. I mean, growing up, and I'm sure you guys know this too. Like, we figure out other ways to like kind of like come up with, I guess, other ways to figure out like how to come up with money without really trying to figure out how to do it the right way. Like we come up with like cundinas and things like that.
Yes, I was just gonna
we
say
are
that.
resourceful as a community. Like we are. If there's one thing the Latino community is resourceful. We will make shit work.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's, to your point, it's the lack of knowledge and understanding. A lot of our parents are immigrants that came to this country and they were taught to save money and that's how you did it, So them teaching us that, put it under your mattress, save your money, that you do kind of what you're kind of taught, what you think is right.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah. That's
to be fair to our parents as well, like they didn't have the access to information the way we do now. Right?
Yeah,
like
right on.
The stuff that we're able to Google, pull up on our phones, like you'd have to go to the library. Like it wasn't as accessible to them, right? So they did what they knew how to do. They came here, they knew how to hustle, they knew how to make money and provide.
Right on.
Now the tables have kind of turned a little bit, right? That access to information is more readily available. So now it's about how do we capitalize on that and use it for wealth creation as opposed to distractions.
Yeah, I mean, even to that word survive, like how could you think about building for future generations? You're trying to make sure you and your children you have now can survive. So you can't even think beyond that.
Yeah, that's very true, man. Man, you guys are really good at this stuff, dude. Like that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I'm like, man, like it's tough to find people you can have these kind of conversations with in friendships and everything.
Because to your point, if I could interject real quick, like it's hard to have this conversation with like your family sometimes.
It is.
Because a lot of the things that we're talking about are, it's hard to face some of those conversations with your people, right? Because part of it, I think a part of it is real, right? A lot of what we're talking about is truly like just making ends meet. But I think the more that you learn, the more that you know, you also understand how that like lack of knowledge or sometimes even lack of initiative kind of keeps you in the same place. I think earlier we said how, we can make so many things work. Like my argument to that is that we can make almost anything work except money.
That's true.
You're right. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's very true. And it doesn't really help too, like, because we watch TV and there's a lot of commercials, and with our commercials is basically different ways to spend your money. Like give us there's a McDonald's deal, there's whatever Lysol product or whatever the case. And I think that's a tough part. Where we're being a consumer is like a default, and I think that for the most part, from what I've seen with what you guys are doing with your platform, it looks like you're trying to kind of get a lot of the community of color mentality to go from consumer to investor. And how to like be able to do that, like how to, like you said, like Rennie said, like make your money work for you, because that's the only thing that's not working that's coming to you. So I mean, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts as to like obviously this whole platform that you guys launched came in the middle of the pandemic. Like, was that something that you guys just did because of that, or was it something that you guys had already planned prior and the pandemic kind of just bring it to fruition or something? Like how did you guys be able to come together and all that?
It's actually, a lot of it is because of the pandemic. As far as how we got together and starting to talk about it, we had our IG group where we just started talking about everything, who's the best artist, who's the best basketball player, who's the best team.
Yeah. And
during the pandemic, you have a lot more time on your hand because you're not consuming so many different things because a lot of things were shut down.
Yeah.
And seeing what was going on in the investing circles, because I was already kind of investing, so were the guys.
You were kind of investing. You had a Roth, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I was investing, but I wasn't as knowledgeable. And I think when we kind of started putting our heads together, we decided, we not decided, but we realized that there was a lot of opportunities and we could teach ourselves in a pandemic where nothing was really going on. So that opened the doors for us. And I'll always say that Jesse was my first webinar into investing. You know, one day we just set up a Zoom, like what we're doing right now. And we just started talking about investing, learning about different things. And from that, it grew into getting into different programs, things that we started following and learning more about. And we saw that there was a lack of people like us talking to us. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that we try to do with our course, with our webinar series, with the education that we're trying to put out, is put it into a language that our people can digest, and it's translated in their lingo so that they understand that it's not as far-fetched of an idea as it really is. So I would say that the pandemic played a big part in the formation of this group, but it was an opportunity for us to learn and make something out of what, we were wasting a lot of time which is a lot of useless information.
Yeah. I think what I would add to that is, I think like the first few months of the pandemic, like we saw the market rebound like crazy. Especially I know Jesse and I had been investing for a long time. I think Rick's had been investing for a while. We kind of got Dover to get started, right? But we were all investing in some form. We just maybe weren't talking about it as much because maybe some of us were investing in individual stocks. Maybe some of us were investing into a 401k. Some of us were in a Roth or whatnot, but we weren't really having that conversation. So, obviously the market crashes in March and then it rebounds. And, if I could be honest, I feel like at that period where it wasn't really a stock pickers market at that point because you could almost invest in anything and it would go up. But the energy you get from everybody when the market is up is you got to leverage it because it's not always there. So, anytime the market gets hot, like people want to jump on our webinars and they want to follow and stuff, right? But literally we're telling people it's the opposite, right? Like you actually have to buy low and sell high. So, when the market kind of pulls back like it is right now, it feels like there's a lessened enthusiasm. And I think that's because like people's time horizons are different, right? Like if you're looking at the long term, if you're looking at, this is going to set me up for generational wealth versus getting rich tomorrow, that's where I think the enthusiasm isn't as there as much. So I feel like that was a little bit of the catalyst that got us going, because we were able to, really see some more real-time results. And as we shared with others, they saw it too. I think now, like, that was our catalyst. Now the challenge is like, how do we keep people focused on this? Because obviously, we've entered a little bit of a correction. Some people think it's a bear market. We'll kind of see how that ends up. It's not always going to be that kind of rebound. And, it was a nice way to start, but now it's like, how do we work through that?
I think the other thing to add to that is when we talk about the pandemic, like that's legit what kind of inspired a lot of the conversation. So I think Redney's been investing for about 7 or 8 years. I've been investing for about 7 or 8 years. And that's how the conversation kind of came to be. Like, why are there so many people that look like you and I that have to make this very hard decision of, do I buy food or do I pay for rent? Meanwhile, the other folks that don't look like us were doubling and tripling their net worth because they had that education and our people didn't, right? So we said, you know what? We do know about this. We've been investing. We've got to start spreading that word because this is the opportunity now when the markets are red to start creating that wealth.
Right on, man. Yeah, that's so true, dude. I think that's why, like, even for me, I mean, the first time I ever got into like retirement investing was back in it's about like a decade ago with Chase. I used to work at Chase Bank, so they give you 401k and all that, and I didn't know what it was invested in. I just knew it was growing because it's they put it in a fund. And then currently where I'm at, it's a 403b because it's a nonprofit where I'm at. So it was interesting because I never really got into like what's happening in the market or stocks or anything like that until maybe the pandemic, for sure, is when I felt like, oh, let me look at this thing, especially with the whole GameStop craze. I'm such a researcher type. Like, I like looking at things. So I was just kind of looking at it from afar. I remember like just seeing all these people go wild on Reddit and all that. And I'm just like, wow, this is interesting. Plus, where I'm at is a news station. So we're always used to like, hearing the news and knowing how to research and fact check and things like that. So I didn't dive into any of that stuff. Like, I just kind of saw it from afar because I knew it was kind of like, to me, it was like a circus. It was kind of like, wow, this is interesting. But, for the most part, as much as that happened, it was kind of cool to see that it kind of put investing on the forefront, like for that moment where people were like all of a sudden now into, oh shoot, maybe I should have like a brokerage or whatever. But of course, like with that, there's responsibility. But I think at the same time, you can't control everything. And I was talking to my buddy about this the other day because, him and I, we talk about finance here and there. He used to work at Wells Fargo, which is funny how like when you work at a bank, you kind of like have that vibe of like, oh yeah, that's right. And it was kind of funny because he brought me on his show and he wanted to talk about it, and I kind of came off very like it is what it is. Like, if you made money in GameStop, well, congrats. If you lost money, man, that sucks for you. And he was kind of like, yeah, but people shouldn't. People needed to be more careful. And my thought process is more like, yeah, but at the same time, like, people want to do what they want to do. Like, for as much as we want to, like, kind of lead them to water, like, we can't make them drink it. You know what I mean? So, I think at the time you guys had already started launching your stuff. So it was kind of one of those things where I felt like, I've been telling a lot of people about you guys, where I was like, yeah, my buddy Rene and his friends, like, they got a platform going, especially for communities of color, that I think is really dope. And I think it's really dope to see that. I would love to see that be more normal, because of the fact that it's not, and like yes, he said, like, people that don't look like us, to them, it's normal to have trust accounts, to have, all these kind of accounts. It's not, they don't look. That's why when I hear all these podcasts, like ad reads for like, Blue Apron and all these subscription things, like it's cool that these people come up with these products, but for the most part, the people that can afford it and keep it going and like really be able to afford those kind of things are like pretty affluent types, because the price point and all that is kind of more built and geared towards that. So like, yes, he said, like, there are people who don't have that luxury and have to choose between food or rent, and it's just not cool. So,
but what I would kind of say to that though is I think there are those people that have to choose between food and rent. But I think also, like, if I reflect, right, like the first time that I was investing, like I started, investing as far as like not selling, like 6-7 years ago. But back in like the mid 2000s, like I had stock in Apple.
Yeah.
Right. And I wasn't picking, I was a student, or no, I don't think I was a student. Yeah, maybe I was a student still.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't have a lot of money, but the decisions I made as far as what I did with that stock had nothing to do with food or rent.
Yeah.
It had everything to do with, do I want my money in this account where like I'm not happy with how it's growing, or do I want to sell my stocks and use the money to buy some liquor for a party that we're going to throw that day instead? Like, that's a real story. Like in the mid 2000s, I sold all my Apple stocks so that I could buy liquor for a party that we threw. Right. And, I feel like when you were talking about GameStop, like that's a great point, because I think there's two sides to it. Like on one side, like I love that it got so many more people into the market and it opened up those eyes. But I also don't like the fact that a lot of people opened up their eyes to the market and then got burnt, and now they don't want to get anywhere near it.
Yeah.
Because it was so much about rewarding everybody, very quickly. And anything that goes up really quick is going to come down probably twice as fast. And, by the time that the GameStop news kind of hit, the mainstream and everything, anybody who got in at that point, like, they're holding the bag.
Yeah.
And that applies. I mean, we're all holding bags, like the way that the market has been, right? But, our trajectory is probably going to be a lot more long term. Whereas, you think about GameStop, it was a lot of fun, but a lot of people didn't really slow down to think like, damn, this business was dying before the pandemic. Like, what's going to happen now, right? So I think that's the other piece to it, is that, like, how do you leverage that energy, that desire to learn about it, into something that's a little bit more sustainable over time?
I also think the specific part of GameStop that really like hurt the mission that we have as the Brown Skinvestors is people of color listen to other people and threw their money at it.
Yeah.
Didn't really research, didn't know what they were doing, just saw the craze, saw all this thing going up. Oh, let me make money quick.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And those same people we're trying to educate and teach how to learn and understand what they're actually putting their money in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy how they were willing to throw money at GameStop, no problem, but they can't take the time to actually learn what it's about.
Yeah.
And we were real cognizant about not jumping into those crazes, because we understood that, as these things were going up, GameStop, AMC, that wasn't the play that we were trying to teach, because we were really trying to teach about long-term investing, and people that got caught up in the craze, like Rennie said, they were left holding the bag. So that distrust that they've always had about investing, because of not having their money and not having it in their hands, it only grew.
Yeah.
So we were real cognizant about what we were doing as far as the information that we were sharing and making sure that we weren't highlighting or spotlighting things that had to do with get rich quick schemes and stuff like that.
I mean, in full transparency though, just to be transparent, right?
Like we made money.
We made money off of that.
I made nice.
But here's the thing. Yeah, but here's the thing is like we had that long-term investing foundational mindset. So whenever I'm trading, like I'm not trading with big pockets. Like, you know, if we're talking about like the size of a portfolio, like that's all in long-term stuff that I don't even know how, I don't even want to look, to be honest with you, because I know it's less than what it was a few months ago.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's not what it's about, because I know that over time it's going to work itself out.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other piece too, is that like, you know, a lot of times people do want to jump into trading and everything, and that's fine, but you have to understand that there's some real risk associated with that. Because just like maybe we made money off of an AMC, like there's also been times where, you know, if you don't identify those risks ahead of time, you could get into trouble too. So I think like the big thing here is that like you have to start with securing the future, you know, securing the present, and then, you know, maybe at that point, then you can take some risks. But, you know, you just gotta prioritize, right? You gotta, you know, crawl before you walk, right?
That's very true. And that brings me to my next point with I guess mentality is a thing. Like what has, from your, since you guys have started the Brown Skinvestors, what has been like the biggest hurdle that you guys have gone through, like when it comes to actually trying to teach people? Because I know right now it's purely like an educational platform, but I'm assuming, I feel this is going to be bigger than that at some point in the future. But like, what's the biggest hurdle you guys have come through right now?
I think it's the emotion.
Yeah.
I think it's teaching people that investing is a very, very emotional sport. You know, it's going to take you on that roller coaster. We all have very different risk tolerance. We all have different patient levels, and I think that we learn from each other because of that. But it's one of the biggest things that we push. Probably the biggest thing, you know, Rennie always highlights that. That's the one thing that if you saw our webinar course, we speak about the emotions of investing every single time, because that's really the number one thing. It's how much can you stomach and how much can you wait for what you really want.
What I would add to that is that our target audience is the most frustrating. And I say that, you know, with all due respect to everybody that follows us, right? But you know, when you think about the people that really engage with us, like it's usually the people that are a little bit further along.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like some of the people that I think could stand the most to benefit, like, you know, we don't know it all. Like, we're not going to start by even saying that, right? Like, it's all about opening up that conversation and just giving people the invitation to learn more. But a lot of times the same people who, you know, might express some interest in learning more, you know, you see them and, you know, they'll thank you for what you're teaching. They'll thank you for the message that you're sharing. And then they'll tell you that, you know, man, like, I wish I could do it, but I just can't. And then 5 minutes later, they're telling you about something that they bought that, you know, that they can't afford.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that can be, I think, to me, one of the most frustrating things, because if you're not making that, you're making that connection, but you're not being able to fight through to the next level with some of our audience.
Like people of color, all they tell us is, well, can I just give you my money and you tell me what to do? Like, we're trying to teach, we're trying to educate.
Yeah.
And, you know, people of color just don't want to necessarily do the due diligence, don't believe in themselves that they can learn this, that they can educate themselves. I get it. When I first started, I thought it was a different language, but all it took was just some conversations, a little bit of research, get off Instagram and Google some information, you know, look things up. You know, but I feel like that's the biggest hurdle, is people of color don't want to challenge themselves and are afraid to think outside the box or think about something that they've never been exposed to.
I don't know. I would challenge that statement. Like, I don't think it's that. I think it's more of this fear, this risk, right? And it's interesting because it comes from our parents.
Yeah.
Like, they want us to take the safe route, right?
Yeah.
Well, or what they were perceived to be the safe route.
Yeah.
But dude, they took the biggest risk of all, whether it was our parents or our grandparents. Like, they left their home country to come to the U.S. in pursuit of this American dream.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a big risk in itself. And then all of a sudden they got here and they were like, nah, chill, hold on, stop risking stuff, take it easy. And like, that's where we now try to capitalize on it. Like, that risk that they took can't be in vain. Right. You can't leave everything back, whether it's in Chile or in Mexico or in Colombia. Or in India. Like, you gotta now build on that risk that the family took.
Right on.
So, you know, work hard, get a good job, get good grades in school. That's what all our parents told us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
but they didn't tell us how to pay for school. They didn't tell us how to get out of debt. They didn't teach us how to manage credit.
Oh, we got taught how to go into debt.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's because they didn't know.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So now I think that's where that frustration comes from, because as we try to teach them, they keep trying to beat that drum of, no, that's too risky. That's too risky.
But you got to call a spade too. You know what I mean? And, I got friends living paycheck to paycheck. They got every pair of Jordan that's out. Paying resale value for them. Bad Bunny concert. I love Bad Bunny. He's a great artist. Tickets at $700-800. Guess what? I'll see 30 different people on Instagram at that concert. And it's just like the prioritization of what's real. Like, I'm not saying you can't have fun and enjoy yourselves, but why can't you do both?
Yeah, it's that mindset, right? It's that shift in mindset, because what I try to tell people is everything we like to do is a business transaction, right? You like to go out to eat, that's a business transaction. You like to go to the Bad Bunny concert, that's a business transaction. You want to go rent a car, that's a business transaction. So how do we teach our people to get on the other side of that transaction? Instead of being the ones shelling out the dough, how do we create the businesses that now we benefit from the transactions?
Yeah. You start Cundinas, dude. I'm just messing.
I'm still part
We
of
call them the
Cundina right
Susu
now.
on the East Coast. Back in New York, on the Susus.
So you're from the East Coast, right? What part of the East Coast are you from? New York?
So I was born in Tarrytown, New York, and raised in Queens, New York.
Oh, right on. All I know is 50 Cent in Queens.
There you go.
And
That's on the other side of Queens where I was at. I was more on the East Elmhurst, Astoria side.
Queensbridge. Was it Prodigy,
right.
Mobb Deep, right? Yeah, so,
There you go.
But yeah, no, you guys are right. The mentality is probably the biggest hurdle, dude. I think it's not so much that you don't have money; it's just you don't really, like you said, you don't feel like you can do it. And I can understand on the other side of the parents thing, it's just a huge risk. But I think what happens is they go from leaving their country to coming here, so they're playing to win, and then when they get here, it's like they're playing not to lose.
Right, and that's a great way to explain it.
And I think that like you said, that mentality creeps into us as their children because. At the end of the day, we are like them, or we're a version of them. So it's always tough, man. I feel like I wish these conversations would be no more normal. Not to say I'm not saying people should be geeking out about stocks, but it's just
No, I'm saying that people should be geeking out about stocks.
No, I would just say having a Roth and all that, or budgeting. Hey, I'm gonna allocate a percent. For me, that's how it is. I allocate a percentage of my income towards my retirement or towards my brokerage, just if I want to play. And even then, it's not a lot that I put in the money that I play with in the kind of the brokerage apps and all that, because I know myself and I know I'm not gonna go and burn money.
Let's start with the golden rule: play with money that you can't lose, and you're acting like a fool.
Yeah,
So I think what I would add to that is amongst us and amongst some of our closest friends, our conversations, like Rick was saying earlier, it might be about sports, it might be about music. But we spend a lot of time talking not only about the stock market, but we talk about investing in each other's businesses. So, for example, this we're incorporated, right? We're official. Jesse and I have another business. We have a real estate investment business, and both Chris and Rick's are investors in our business. Yes, and a lot of our closest friends are investors in our business, right? So I think when you start thinking about it from that perspective, how long did all of us, we were all willing to go to Vegas. We were all putting money down, to buy a table. Yeah. And you think about if you add up all those times that we were willing to do that, how many businesses could we have already launched?
Yeah, of course.
And it just comes down to that comfort level. And the cool part about it is that as we start doing this, then we start seeing some of our friends start starting some of their businesses, and, they start talking to us about investing in their business. And that's really where it's at. And if you look at some of the other cultures that have come out here, there's a little bit more of that infrastructure in place already, right?
Yeah,
and,
very true.
I feel like that's one thing where, hopefully, some of what we're doing can influence people to do that, because I think part of the reason that our parents took that big risk, like you said, that they came in, wanting to win. And then after that, it's more about playing defense, is because, I don't know that they had that support system out here, right? A lot of them came on their own and they don't know what to do from that point. So, I think there's that to be said too.
Well, they're playing a rigged game. They came to this country. There were no systems there to support them or help them build.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is learned behavior. And I think little changes, one of the biggest little changes that I think that we've done as a group now is how we celebrate each other's families, giving each other stocks or giving our friends stocks as gifts now, instead of buying them clothes that they'll outgrow in a year, giving them things like that, like actual valuable commodities that are going to build for their future. So now we're supporting each other's kids' futures and things like that. I think you're breaking learned behaviors. I've been in education now for so long, and a lot of it is breaking learned behaviors because everybody has learned behaviors, and you have to break them in order to help them learn different ones, the ones that you want to model. So you want to model the behaviors that you want.
And don't get it twisted. Like, you still get the side eye I still get the side eye when I give people stocks as gifts. They look at me like I'm fucking crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I
think also a learned behavior that we need to really change is talking about money. Like, you hit the nail on the head when you said that. Like, the topic of money is so taboo. My fiance's aunt asked her, how much did it take you to buy the house you buy? How much was it? And she didn't want to answer it, and she went around it. And in my head, I'm thinking, it's okay to let them know. It is what it is. Maybe it's for education. But it's always about, oh, well, if we're talking about money, we're showing off because we did this, we did that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or they're going to start, there's going to be envy or greed. Yeah.
But that's true, though.
You know what
Bro,
I mean?
It's true. Like, it really does happen in a lot of families.
That's true. But that needs to change. That's what I'm saying. That can't be the way it has to be.
Yeah.
We have to be able to talk about money and educate each other and learn from each other. You did something, you made a mistake. Let me learn from that. That's what we're trying to do here as Brown Skinvestors, is take everybody on the journey with us. We're not perfect. We've got some good wins, but we've also taken some losses, and we're transparent about it.
That's true, man. That's very, very true. I think that at the same time too, I guess this kind of that mentality also seeps into like our government. Like, this is why both sides can't never get along, because they can't have like proper dialogue, because it's very just headbutting, and it's kind of like what they're used to. So our families are used to the headbutting already. So it's like we try to go around it to just avoid it because it's just easier. But then it feels weird because then it kind of feels like you might be suppressing something. I don't know. I'm thinking about like mental health now too, where it's kind of like how, you know what I mean? And the thing is, money does mess up with your mental health. Like, a lot of people, you know what I mean? They go off, and it's not good. So having that kind of dialogue is important. And I think just having those kind of conversations matter and stuff. So yeah, man. I wanted to talk about just like, of course, not financial advice, but like, I know right now with what's happening in the world with Ukraine and everything, it's affecting the market. Like, we're all bleeding right now in our portfolios. Like how much of that? Because I know you guys, I finished your course and I saw the fundamental analysis and the technical analysis. How much of that do you guys look into? Like, do you guys look into that every day? Do you guys read the news and all that? Or do you kind of just know what you need to go to, like in terms of like Yahoo Finance and all that?
I think it kind of depends on which ones of us you ask.
Yeah.
Because some of us are a little bit more passive, some of us are a little bit more active.
Yeah.
I think what I would share with what's going on right now, this is like one of the times where both technical and fundamental analysis are temporarily going out the window, because I think the market is trying to like find the bottom. And what happens with the market is it tends to price things in ahead of time.
Yeah.
So, obviously it was the interest rate hikes, right? It was, the reduction of the balance sheet. Now we're talking about, conflict in Ukraine. Next thing could be, China invading Taiwan. So I think it's searching for bottom, but, I think when you look at it both from a fundamental and technical analysis standpoint, that fundamentally a lot of the companies, are now all of a sudden from like a P&E standpoint, like they're looking a lot more attractive. A lot more attractive. And then from a technical standpoint, we're oversold as hell. Now, if we're truly in a bear market, we know that these pops are going to get sold and it might go a little bit lower.
Yeah.
So I think some people do have to consider adjusting some strategies. But if you're really looking at it from a long-term perspective, I'm sure you've seen, there's this chart that's out there that like tracks the growth of the S&P 500 over like the last, 70, 80 years. And it calls out every single conflict that's happened. And, the market does always rebound. And I have all the confidence that it's going to do that. So I think, if you're sticking to our number one rule, which, you heard in the course, is that you definitely only invest what you can afford to lose.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine. And then if you're dollar cost averaging, and things like that, it'll all work out, because if you're dollar cost averaging, you've been buying this dip. So yeah, it might be hurting a little bit because you're like, damn, when is it finally going to go back up?
Yeah.
But when it goes up, like, you're going to be fine. So I think a lot of people might capitulate and sell and, just forget about it. But in reality, like right now, if you just, keep doing your thing and maybe even forget about it, you're going to be super happy you did so in like 5 years from now.
Yep. Just buy the fear.
That's right.
Yeah, like Rick says, you only lose when you sell.
That's true.
If you're doing long-term investing, so what if it goes down? So what if that portfolio looks red?
Yeah.
It's about long-term investment. Instead of putting the money in your bank account and sitting there and getting no interest,
That's true.
Put it in the market.
What does Mr. Fundamental think? I want to get Mr. Fundamentals. Mr. Fundamental's over here.
Yeah, I saw that.
So yeah, they call me Mr. Fundamental because
Like
I'm the guy that
Tim
geeks
Duncan
out.
of stock.
Yes, I'm the guy that gets a kick out of reading the 10Qs and the 10Ks and listening to the actual earnings calls and seeing what's going on. So the only thing I would really add to that is, let's take a company like Apple, Microsoft, Google. Nothing has changed about these companies in the last 60 to 90 days.
Besides the stock price.
Besides their stock price.
Yeah.
Right? Apple is still Apple. Google's still going to Google.
Yeah.
You're still going to be on a PC at work, right?
Yeah.
That has Windows on it.
Of course.
So we just got to take a step back and realize, okay, maybe we rebounded really fast from the COVID crash.
Yeah.
Like that was the fastest rebound in history.
Yeah.
And to Renee's point, just as quick as it went down, it's going to come back down and readjust, right? And get back on this normal trajectory.
Yeah.
So take that for what it's worth. When you got your fundamental analysis, when you've got your technical analysis, which we teach in the course, shameless plug.
Go for it, man.
You get a better understanding of how to deal with those things. But then you do have things that come up in the world, such as macroeconomics, that throw all that stuff out the window.
Yeah.
This conflict in Ukraine or the possibility of the conflict in Ukraine, it's going to make the market volatile. They don't like uncertainty.
Yeah.
But that's your opportunity to pounce on the market, right? So one of the bags that I'm holding right now is on Square. I still think Square is a great company.
Yeah.
I'm down 43% on my long-term holdings in Square.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about it because guess what? I get to now double and triple down on all these positions as it goes down. And when it does start to come back up, guess what? My cost basis is going to be so low that in 6 months, I'll be back in the green. I'm going to wind up making X% so much faster. You know what I mean? Right. Now, should I have taken maybe a step back and not have dropped as big of a bag on Square when I did? Sure. I could have dollar cost average and I could have bought month after month after month.
Yeah.
But what if the market would have went the other way?
Yeah, that's hindsight.
It's hindsight, right? So as long as you did your research and you gotta stay convicted in your belief. If you're gonna get shaken out of these positions, that's what we call the whales. Yeah. That's what they're doing. They're doing this because they know they're gonna shake out the normal retail investor. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna cut my losses. Great. That's exactly what I wanted because that's the price I wanted that stock at.
Yeah.
And I think it also kind of depends, right? Like on what your portfolio consists of, right? So I was mentioning earlier, I have no idea what the hell my Roth is looking like. I have no idea what my 401k is looking like.
That's me too, man.
I have a brokerage account, and my brokerage account, I took a little bit of a different strategy to it. Like I told these guys, right? Like I'm like, guys, I'm okay with maybe trimming 20 to 25% of my brokerage account because I want to free up some of it in case I do get some of these discounts, right?
Yeah.
And so far it's worked. I haven't bought anything, and I told you guys I'm personally waiting until quad witching in March. And after that, I think it's going to be time to start pouncing. And if it goes down a little further, I'm okay with that because to Jesse's point, like I'll just buy more.
Yeah.
So, I think it kind of depends too. Like I think one thing that I would, definitely throw out there is something that we've learned, I think is, really understanding that you really have to separate, I think, some of the speculation from like the actual business. That's not to say that it's always wrong. I just think a lot of the companies that went up really high, they were going to do it anyway. It just happened so much faster than it was supposed to happen that now it's just a regression to the mean. But a lot of these same companies they're going to still kill it in the future, right? Like we don't know which ones they're going to be, but at the same time, in the early 2000s, no one knew that Apple was going to rock the smartphone market. Everybody thought it was going to be BlackBerry and Nokia. Yeah. So, some of that is at play too. But I think, for anybody who's out there who maybe doesn't have the time to necessarily watch the markets all the time, like, you can always start with some of those big companies, like some of the ones that Jesse mentioned. And then you can also look at index funds, right? And if you're looking at like a total stock market index fund, if you're looking at something that tracks the S&P 500, all you got to do is just be patient and have a long time trajectory. And if you're looking into the future, like, there's no old investor that you will ever find. There's not one old investor who's going to tell you, God, I made such a mistake investing in the stock market all these years. Like if somebody finds one, I'd love to meet that person because I don't think you'll ever find one.
I mean, you took our course. You see what we preach and what we're trying to teach over here. We're trying to teach. You don't have to worry about this type of conflict that's happening at the moment. Because if your end game is long-term investing, building generational wealth down the road, you're putting money in there and you're not concerned about what's in the moment because in the long term, you're investing in companies that you believe in that are still going to be around and still going to be successful.
Yeah, man, that's very, very true. Yeah, I feel like for the most part, I've noticed that like just um for me at least, I see it as like, it's still early in the year. You know what I mean? Like if you're like trying to have like financial goals and whatnot, I mean, it's still early for the market to be down, at least for me. Like I just feel like, oh, it's fine, but I'm on the same page as ESC and then and Rennie as well, where it's like I do have, I think I have PayPal and I'm down like 40% too, which PayPal's been bad like all year last year too. But I bought it towards like the end of the year because I was like, well, like I think I think this would be a good time. But again, it still went down anyway. So like again, you never know, hindsight, right? And I think that I right now I have money just sitting in the brokerage that I haven't really I haven't made any buys because same thing as you guys. I'm just waiting and seeing how it plays out before I do it. But that I'm gonna dollar cost average, yeah, you know what I mean, and it's gonna be fine.
You know what I would just real quick, what I would add to that is like, it's not always about buying the dip. Like sometimes it might be buying the bounce.
Yeah.
And if you miss a little bit on the bottom, like what's the big deal? Because at the end of the day, it is time, because obviously some of the newer investors, like they might be a little shaken up right now because obviously the market has gone down. But somebody who got into the market 5-6 years ago, we're not even anywhere near the levels that we were at 5-6 years ago. So I think that's, that old saying about time in the market beats timing. Like it's always going to ring true because, today's pullback, today's correction, today's crash, right? Like even in 2020, like some stocks crashed, but they were still, way ahead of where they were, 5-6 years before that. So it's about patience. It's about like giving yourself some options. Like, like you said, if you have some cash on the side, there's nothing wrong with that. Sooner or later, you're going to put it to work. And if it's not in the stock market, there's other things that you can invest in too, right? And it doesn't just have to be stocks or crypto. It can be, real estate. It can be your own business. It can be your homie's business, right? There's so many other avenues that are out there for us to make our money work for ourselves. So, having some cash on the sidelines is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
Obviously don't want to have too much cash on the sideline either, because we talk about inflation a lot and the impact that has.
Yeah.
But you got to give yourself some options too.
And like Rennie always says, from a technical analysis perspective, when you're looking at a specific stock, when in doubt, zoom out.
Yeah.
You zoom out, the moment is going to be a lot different than looking at it from a further out perspective and seeing the performance of that stock.
I think Renee said this earlier too. Like obviously one of the easiest ways is if you just have index funds, and then that way you don't really stress on when to get in, when to get out, right? You just put it and you do it. And I think for the most part, that works for most people. I think what happens is, like you guys said, because of, and I wanted to get into this conversation too with like social media, like the whole finfluencer movement that's happening, where like all of a sudden I'm seeing TikTok videos of, all these weird like kind of suggestions of what to do with your money and investment. I don't know. It feels very like, I don't know. And I get that it's content, and content is just a game of just, putting stuff out there and, getting the likes and the, the reshares and all that stuff. Like, what are you guys' thoughts on like what's going on with this whole, and maybe it's just my algorithm that's getting the finfluencers because I click on it so much, but like, I wonder like how big this really is, because I don't know how many people really are in this space, but do you guys have any thoughts on that, and maybe what you guys are looking to see, if you guys want to, like, how you guys want to stand out from all that?
Well, as a finfluencer ourselves, no, I think the social media game, it's exactly what it's intended to be. It's just eyeballs on content as you're speaking to. But one thing that you'll always notice is that the people that claim that they know the most, that they get rich the quickest, are always the quietest when there's dips and drops and stuff like that. And it's a matter of getting through that noise, because like you said, the more you click on it, the more you're going to see it. So you'll see, all these investors and all these gurus and everything like that telling you what to do with your money. But the second that there's a correction or a dip or anything like that, they're, chirps.
Yeah, I think it's important to also see that it's a bit of a catch-22, right? Like, yes, there's a lot of influencers out there, but dude, it's at least starting the conversation.
That's true.
It might be the wrong conversation, but at least people are talking about, how do I invest?
Yeah.
And our hope is that, they come and follow us so that we give them some good advice, or other people, because we're not the only ones out there.
Yeah.
But it's still about doing your due diligence, right? Like, you can't follow anybody blindly. Even us. We say it all the time. Like, we don't give you financial advice. We tell you the things that we're doing.
Yeah.
We show you transparency, but you still got to do your own research.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who's out there following anybody just blindly, you're going to wind up getting burned. So yes, it's cool that they're out there and they're starting a conversation, the audience still has to do their due diligence to find out who they're going to trust and follow with their information.
Yeah. Right. And I think, it's a lot of it is about intent, so what's someone's intention when they're putting stuff out? I think there are people that are out there, they're getting their content out. Some of it is fun. Some of it is awesome. Sometimes you also see some, people that have a lot of substance and you see them trying to like kind of play the TikTok game to try to like feel more relevant.
Yeah.
You could tell if you follow us, like, we're not really doing that because I don't know that we feel that comfortable with it. Have we thought about it? Yeah, of course we thought about it. But we stick to our guns because I think that that's what's going to be more relevant over time, like, is the fact that we're not going to just cater to whatever's hot at the moment.
Yeah.
And then you also have some people that are out there that I think, like, they're sharing the wrong thing because they either want to get, subscription money or they want somebody to go and sell stuff for them, things like that. And that's the part that I think is a little tough because you have a lot of people out there that are making, decisions based off of what they see.
Yeah.
And, no one's going to be there to help them with the consequences if those things don't work out.
Right on.
Yeah, I think the other part to that is, when you're looking at these finfluencers, right? Like, look at our page and look at the posts that get the most likes and the posts that get like 3 or 4 likes. The content that we put out that's actually educational and informational that people can take action on gets the least amount of traction.
Mm-hmm.
But now we post a picture of us in Vegas having a good time, and boom, the likes go up right away.
I think that's more of the Rennie effect, but all right.
Facts.
People love the lifestyle,
but no, seriously, I think that's what you got to also take into account is that I can't necessarily blame the influencers if that's what the audience is clicking and hitting likes on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, social media is all about instant gratification, right? They want to get rich quick scheme type thing and things of that nature. And we've talked about our own content and how we're bringing that to life. And that's one thing I really appreciate about our movement is we stay true to who we are. Mm-hmm. We're not chasing it, like we're going to build organically. People that want to be on our mission and join our movement, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah.
People join us, stop following us, that's on them. But, we're going to stay true to who we are. And it's not about just throwing out GameStop and AMC wins and get rich quick this way. It's about teaching, educating, really driving generational change through people of color.
That's right.
That's dope, man. Yeah, no, that's why I wanted to ask that because I love that you guys are very grounded. So for like anybody that's listening to this podcast and they're probably thinking like, man, are these guys going to be talking about how they're going to 10X and, or pull a Ty Lopez where like you're in front of a Ferrari and then I'm going to be like, I'm going to teach you about books now, I don't know if you guys have heard.
Actually,
just wait a couple years. Let my portfolio catch up.
But to be honest with you, I feel like it's the opposite because like, I can't speak for everybody, but like I stopped, once you start seeing the value of your money at work, you stop spending it on shit that don't give you a return.
That's true.
Right. So like for me, like I know I've been guilty most of my life of spending money that I either had or sometimes money that I didn't have, to look, fly and to, buy the car that I wanted and stuff like that. And, now it's a little different. Like if it doesn't give me some kind of return, like I have trouble spending on that kind of stuff. Like I was telling these guys that my wife and I, like we're in a budgeting challenge this month.
Yeah.
We're not rich or anything like that, but we do well for ourselves. Yeah. And sometimes we're like, man, like, it's a good thing that we do okay for ourselves because the way we spend, like this is dumb. And, we started like, all we did was we put up a shared spreadsheet between the two of us.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we started doing this and like our expenses are way down, but we're just as happy as we are when we're spending a lot of money, without even thinking about it. And that's the other side of it too, is that it's not just about investing. It's also about, spending, living within your means, right. And not stretching yourself so much financially. And it's okay to stretch yourself if, you're buying assets that appreciate in value, if you're buying things that are going to, obviously give you a return over time. And that's been the biggest difference. Like, I can't speak for everybody, but I think for me, like, I don't know how long I've had this jacket. Like, I think I look all right in it. This is like a $40 Goodfellow jacket from Target that I got like 3 years ago. And I'm still going to rock it because, why would I do that when, if I'm going to go buy a $300 or $400 jacket, I could buy some stocks instead.
Speaking of a shameless plug.
I mean, it just goes back to what you mentioned about consumerism. People of color are the most targeted community when it comes to exploiting consumers. I shared stories where I grew up in humble beginnings, apartment complexes, right? 1-bedroom apartment. Everyone's got an Escalade. Everyone's got a nice car. We're all living in apartments. Like, how did that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or everyone has the Jordans. How many chains do you see people of color wearing? Like, if you would have taken that money and put it in a stock, you'd have money probably for 2 chains down the road, you know?
2 chains.
2
chains.
chains. Nah, that's big facts.
Yeah, man.
You're speaking.
So
truths.
I wanted to talk about you guys as a team. Like, what are the strengths that you guys all bring? I mean, it feels like everybody here in this room like has a different background, different things. Obviously, Rick talking about being a principal, I kind of have a feeling maybe he helped out a lot on the course. I would think so, at least. But
you would think so.
you know. But I just wanted to know, like, what are your guys' strengths when you guys come together and what you guys bring to the table?
Now, I would actually give a lot of the content and the creation of it was a lot of it. The manual labor was done with Rennie and Jesse.
Yeah.
I would say that you're right. We have very different strengths as far as how we see things. I'm different because I would say that I'm probably more of the patient one.
Yeah.
As far as how I invest, and a lot of it just comes from understanding that what I have invested is for my retirement. I don't need it right now, so I'm not gonna trip on a dip.
Yeah.
You know,
I like that.
I like that. That's a good one.
Trip on a dip.
I think I just found my new post, so nobody steal it. we take turns. We take turns actually the way that we post on Instagram. So you'll see kind of a trend, and you could probably start to pinpoint who does
You know,
what.
by the way, I think I forgot to tell you guys this. Dragga had a great suggestion. He suggested that we put like a little signature on our post. You know, it could be something discreet. Like I totally forgot to mention that.
Yeah, I don't know who's building a house, but it's like one of y'all are. And I'm just just kind of like who's building the house.
Yeah, you'll see me with posts that are more smart aleck or rap lyrics and stuff like that. So that's more of my style. More of gung ho, let's do it.
Yeah.
Jesse will come in with some fire stuff about like indexes and growth and blah blah. Rennie will come in with like some good information on actual stocks, and I'm like, what can I quote? Let me quote the Sandlot.
Yeah.
I think what I would I think like as far as like what we bring to the table, I think obviously Jesse and I, we're really talking about investing, right? Like it precedes the brown skin investors, so I think like that was a little bit of the foundation. And to that element, like Jesse's, he's definitely the fundamental expert here. Like he teaches us all about like how to break down financial statements, cash flows. For me, I'm more of like the technical analysis, right? Like, I'm usually, I guess if I could describe it, like Jesse will tell you which stocks you should probably get into, and I can probably tell you like when to get into them. Mm-hmm. What Chris brings to the table is I think he brings us back to reality, right? Because, I think he's always reminding us like, hey, these are the conversations that I'm having with the homies, right? And this is what they're telling me. And, I think that's really helpful when we're trying to make our information relevant. And then what Rick brings to the table is that, he really keeps us connected to that next generation. So the course you took, we offered it to Rick's students free of charge. So Rick's students, they went through the entire course. Yep. And, now they're moving on. A lot of them are already starting to invest. And some of the questions that they ask us, man, it's like, damn, if you're asking us those questions now, imagine where you will be in 10, 15 years. Yeah. So when, we really do come together and we form like Voltron is what it comes down to. Everybody has a little bit of a different talent, a little bit of a different expertise, a little bit of a different passion. But when we bring it all together, like, I think it's a pretty dope collaborative that we come up with.
Yeah. Definitely. And
it's like Slaughterhouse, but without all.
I was about to just say Slaughterhouse because I remember the intro of that song. When I think it's Crooked Eye, right? Is that saying?
That was Royce.
Oh, was it Royce? This is like
Royce
coming together like Voltron.
Yeah.
Anyways, you were saying, Chris?
Each of us do bring something different, but at the same time, we do have a lot of commonalities within each other as well.
Yeah.
The drive that we have to do more, to give back, to really change something bigger than us. It's alive. It's a fire in all of us. And the beauty about us is how much we keep each other accountable. I respect these men so much, and they've done so much for me. And days, in the past where I may have been too tired or too lazy to do things, like that's changed, And, we have families, we have professional careers that we do, but we're here every Wednesday meeting together, trying to do better, trying to get better.
That's right.
That's really dope, man. Yeah, man. I guess one of my final questions in terms of with the brown skin investors, like, what do you guys? I know right now you guys have Instagram and you have the course. What do you guys have? Like, is there anything you can release or leak for the 2022? Like, FY 2022 plan?
Wants to take
per our Instagram post today.
There's a couple of things.
I mean, there's a lot of things, but we'll talk about two major.
Yeah, two major things. So the first thing is, and you guys, if you follow our page, you probably saw that we posted something with the DOT, so Department of Transportation. So BSB Logistics is on the way. We are in the process of getting our own truck and trailer on the road.
Nice.
To start delivering freight, man. So it's about taking the communities with us on this journey of seeing how we can continue to diversify our investments. The investing is not just the stock market. It's not just real estate.
Yeah.
It's when you got to learn to look at the problems in the world and find a solution for it. So again, going back to the pandemic and COVID, what was one of the biggest things that impacted everybody? The supply chain issue, right?
Yeah.
You can't get freight to locations fast enough. Right? It's sold before it even gets on the shelf. So we started putting our heads together. Well, like you got to get freight from the ship to the stores or to wherever. We got to get a truck.
Yeah.
And that's what we're in the process of doing now. So, we're going to show you our pains. We're going to show you our gains along the way.
Yeah.
So we invite you to take that journey with us. And there's actually something else that's coming up relatively soon. I'll let it one of the other guys to tell us what it
Rennie. It has something to do with what we're doing now.
Yeah. So, and I was actually, picking Dragga's brain on this a little bit. So we're actually launching our own podcast. It's going to be called Brown Wealth Radio.
Yeah.
And we're going to go live on Wednesday nights, since obviously, Wednesdays when we meet anyway.
Yeah.
The cool part about it though is we were going to do this, on our own, right? But we were actually invited to the Ladies Night podcast. And that's a part of this organization called The Good News. And after being on their podcast, they reached out to us and let us know that they really appreciated what we had to bring to the table. And we actually entered into a partnership with them. So starting in March, by the way, that's because there's a lot of big things coming up personally. I don't know, maybe I'll hand it over to Rix in a little bit so he can share some of that.
CGN.
But in about a month, we're going to be launching, and it'll be a partnership with them. We're actually going to be heading over to their studio and doing our thing from there.
Yep.
So super excited about that. To share a little bit of the whys is because we're super committed to what we're doing, but we also know what we are good at and what we're not so good at. And we might have the content and we might have the right conversations, but obviously we don't really necessarily know about starting our own podcast. So if we have some experts there already, let's just put our heads together a little bit more. But you know what? I think we should share some of the personal. So, Rix, what's up? What's going on with you, bro? You got some big things coming up, man.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the good news, we're going to be starting off actually in mid-March because I'm going to get married next week. So,
congrats, man.
I'm going to be, I'm going to be tying the knot. I'm going to join the married full crew over here so that all of us can now have a ring and I can feel cool because I've been out of the loop with these guys for very long. So.
By the way, Rix once wrote a lyric that said, I'm like LeBron, no ring.
Well, LeBron has 4, so I'm starting late,
That was pre-Miami, LeBron. Pre-Miami,
it was actually.
Oh man, that's dope, dude. Yeah, man. Congrats on the podcast. What can people expect from the podcast that they're not getting on Instagram and all that?
I think you're going to see more of our personalities.
Absolutely.
And since it's going to be a weekly podcast, we're going to come with more news, more information. We're going to, spread some seeds out about our content, everything that we really do, everything that we want to share, but in a more personable light to what we do, our strengths and basically what we do every day. Mm-hmm. We communicate with each other all day, every day. And now we're going to be able to share it with hopefully the masses.
Yeah. And
nice.
There's a reason why it's called Brown Wealth Radio, right? Again, it goes back to that mission. It's about brown wealth. So It's not just about investing in the stock market. It's not just about real estate. It's about creating that wealth, having conversations that spark the conversation within ourselves that we can go and have with our own friends, with our families, and really just trying to spread that education, right? And bring some fun.
Exactly.
Some of this material can be dry as shit, right?
Yeah, that's
so
true.
how do we bring some fun? How do we bring some spunk to it so that people actually want to listen and pay attention?
Not only that, it's a live radio show where we can get interaction. People call in. We can have actual conversations. You know what I mean? And,
for sure.
And, we have plenty of topics to talk about that really build wealth. Credit's something that's not talked about in our community enough. We want to help teach and educate how important that is. how to leverage.
Oh yeah, we didn't get
We got
props for that, by the way.
we got our resident credit guru.
I'm not kidding, man. I took some of Chris's tips, and all of a sudden I'm up 50, 60 points. Like, whoa.
It's just amazing. People are charging hundreds of dollars for just lack of information. You know what I mean? You just you do research, you learn about it. There's little tricks and little tips you can do that work wonders for your credit that our communities have no idea about.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I'm excited about too is I think we've surrounded ourselves with a lot of talented, successful people.
Yeah.
Whether it's through our careers, whether it's through our friendships, whether it's through the organizations we belong to, and I'm excited to hopefully feature a lot of them so that people understand that investing, like Jesse said, right? It's not just the stock market. It's not just real estate. It's not just crypto. It's not even just your own business. Sometimes it's about investing your time. It's about investing your attention. It's about investing your energy. So I think there's a lot of people out there that are successful, and success sometimes doesn't necessarily mean money, right? Like success can mean fulfillment. Success can mean, how did you impact? And I think there's a lot of people that are doing that. So we're hoping that we'll be able to feature them and obviously bring our worlds together. So that'll be a lot of fun too.
Dang. I can't wait to hear like the health and wellness episode and like the, because all that stuff, it matters, man. Like it all plays a role.
It all matters. It's a holistic approach
Fitness,
to just bettering our communities.
Yeah,
we really want to just normalize a lot of topics that we feel like aren't normal in our community and make, have a open and safe space to talk about it.
While adding that sazon.
Right on.
That's swag.
Before we end it, obviously we're all music fans here. I wanted to ask, what's on your guys' rotation right now? Where do you guys?
Definitely not Donda. I'll tell you guys.
Why are you doing Kanye like that, bro?
I'm gonna go ahead and be the odd one out here. These guys can't stand. I don't know. They don't like Donda.
You guys don't like Donda? Wow. I love Donda.
Don't make it worse than it is.
I did an episode on Donda.
This is funny because we're talking to Dragga, and what you guys don't know is that Dragga loves Donda just as much as I do.
Yeah, dude.
Which is fine.
Me and my friend Nahum got together and we did an episode on Donda that's all we talked about. And it was insane. We went over like an hour.
So after those first 5 minutes, like what happened?
Were you talking about how bad it was?
Come on, dude.
Do you know how much Rennie wished you invited him onto that podcast?
Dude, I think
the podcast will still be going though. Just to be honest, with you.
Donda was amazing, man. I think Donda was an amazing album. I'll say it all day in front of these guys. It is what it is. Not everybody's gonna like everything. I think Donda's one of his best albums, but that's just me.
I think it's all in fun just because we obviously in our group chat, it's definitely been a topic of conversation and we talk about it, and you have your pro Dondas and your anti Dondas or just your pot stirrers, so it's all in good fun. I mean, personally, I will say I wasn't a fan of it.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of CLB either, but
me neither. And I
fodder,
I listened to Certified Lover Boy, walking my dog, and it felt like to me that album was stuck on second gear the whole way through. I was waiting for it to like crank at some point and never did, and I was disappointed.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't even think it's a comparison. I think Donda's way better. But anyway, to answer your question though, not to get sucked into Donda, like I would say I really liked Corday's album.
Oh, okay.
I thought that one like I've kept it playing. I thought Russ dropped a pretty dope album, and I've been up and down with Russ over the years. I've actually when Ross first started, I was kind of a hater on Ross, and he's really won me over. I thought his album it hit me a little harder. I don't think it is necessarily going to sustain as much, but it was a good project. I thought that was cool. Those are a couple of the good ones. The album that I think is the best album so far this year has been The Weeknd's album, is what I would say.
Oh yeah,
Dawn FM was a good one. Amazing. I listened to it.
Shout out.
Yeah, that was a good one. Did you guys watch the Twitch stream?
Yeah,
I did it just to get into the conversation.
I had a whole play-by-play in the group chat.
And I gotta say, I was disappointed by the Twitch yesterday. It had like a little 3-4 song stretch where it was like on fire.
Yeah, and I jumped in on the FOMO, and I ended up capitulating.
Off, man.
Yeah, me and my buddies were texting because we're all like audio engineers here at the station, and we were just kind of being like, man, that we'd be fired right now. We caught everything that they were like, oh man, they're not communicating. Someone's on the soundboard.
So I mean, share some knowledge here, because I know I'm assuming that the performers didn't realize that the vocals were delayed, right? Because Fivio kept rapping.
Yeah.
So it seemed like from his body language, he didn't even realize that there was something going on. So how do you think that happened? Because you're the expert here, man.
Dude, and that's my thing, is that it felt like there was some weird communication, not that it wasn't being done, because I would have usually with rap music, even though it's frowned upon, that there's like you're playing the actual song and then you just kind of sing over it. Like I thought it was interesting that
that's not real hip hop.
Yeah. Yeah, that
I'm
is.
just gonna say it like Jadakiss proved this point.
Of course, yeah, that was a good verse.
Such a loud, I mean, such a big stadium. I understand why.
But yeah,
no. I mean, I think I don't I agree with Jesse, but I will say that I think like it's just there's not many people who do what Jadakiss did. Like
that's
true,
I watched
man. That verses, and I knew right away that I was like, oh, this is over by track one. Like once Jadakiss did it, I knew that it was over.
Oh, yeah.
But you got to admit, though, like there's not many people who do that nowadays, right? So that's the other piece.
Yeah, so I just felt like it must have been like some miscommunication, or maybe the track wasn't playing right. And you know how sometimes when you put your headphone jack and it's not all the way through, you can hear something, but not the full thing. And then all of a sudden the vocals kick in and you're like, oh, okay, now I got it. I wonder if it was something like that, but it was definitely really bad too. Like, especially when Kanye threw the mic, it felt like, he was cutting in and out. I don't know what's going on, like why there was no strong signal strength or something. But yeah, it was interesting because, you know, the last one they did with the Kanye and the Drake one, I mean, that was pretty good. That was flawless, man.
Oh, I went to that one.
I know you were there.
He was there live.
My buddy Nahum, who I did the Donda thing, was there as well. And I was texting him while I was watching the stream, and I told him, dude, honestly, Amazon's production team was really on it. And even the shots they got, the drone shots, the aerial shots, everything was like, and I know that he had that big old stage. I don't know how it was for you, Rennie, when you were there in person, but for like us watching, it felt like they designed it for the people on TV. You know what I mean?
Well, so this is funny because I'm gonna tie it back to our whole conversation about, you know, finances, right? So one of my guilty pleasures for like the last 10, 15, 20 years of my life has been going to concerts.
Yeah.
I've spent, man, if I had spent the money I spent going on concerts on investments, like, I'd be rich right now, like super rich, right? But I wanted to go to that concert because that's how much I love Donda. Like, I did not expect Kanye to go into his old bag of tricks, right? Like, nobody did, awesome. Right? Nobody thought that, right? So with that said, one of the things that I noticed is when I was looking for tickets, I didn't buy initially, right? I bought it on the secondary market. Yeah. And dude, check this out. I like using SeatGeek. I always look at the seat scores. I actually got tickets that were 99. I've never gotten tickets that were 99. Yeah. That's like the rating, right? It literally goes from 0 to 99. Yeah, that's right. So when I looked at the map, I noticed that, you know, there was like the field and then there's all the seats around it. Yeah. And then somebody on Twitter like put up a shot of how it was set up. And I noticed that the show was like literally right in the middle of the field. Yeah. But the seats were all literally where the stands are. There weren't any on the field. Mm-hmm. So I noticed that like where I'm sitting, that's about as good of a seat as I could get. And I paid like, I don't even remember. I think I paid like $100 or $110 for my ticket. Yeah. And with how close I was the same, you know, as far as if I compared it to some of those tickets that were like $500-$600 and I only paid $100 or $110. With that said, the audio was on point. It was super clean sounding, but it was definitely from a visual standpoint, like you could tell that it was designed for that Amazon production. Yeah. Because when I saw it on Amazon, like, okay, now I get it. When I saw it in person, it was a little bit of a cold, windy night. So all that, all the smoke on the stage, there was a point where I just didn't see Kanye for like 20 minutes. I could hear him, but I couldn't really see him and nobody could see him. But when you saw it on Amazon, it made sense. So that's the only kind of drawback, but you know, with the energy he had, like the amount of people that were there that day, and then, you know, the way he took it back and still mixed in some of the new stuff, like it was actually one of the best concerts I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of concerts. Right on.
Well, to get off this Kanye love fest, Cole,
hater,
Benny,
hater.
Nah, seriously, J. Cole, Benny the Butcher.
Yeah, that's right.
Royce. Those are the three that are consistently on rotation in the whip, followed by Bad Bunny and J Balvin.
Shout out Bad Bunny.
I got love for Pop Smoke. That's my dude at the moment. Like I love his.
You know what's crazy with Pop Smoke is I never really listened to him at all. I never really got into the drill scene like that. I was listening to his NPR podcast, Louder Than a Riot, which has to do with like kind of like they were trying to connect the intersection between like mass incarceration and hip hop music and whatnot. So obviously they do an episode on Bobby Shmurda and all that. So the other one, it was Bobby Shmurda. So obviously that's when I was all like, oh, so this is what drill is. And now I understood what drill beats were and everything. And then Spotify, I was listening to this on Spotify. So Spotify recommends me this like Pop Smoke like podcast. Like they did a limited series on it about like
I heard it.
who he was, and I'm sure you heard it. It was like 6 episodes.
The 6 episodes,
cool. Like
yeah.
it was pretty.
It's really good.
It's like really good. But that's what actually got me into him, and I was like, oh shoot, like I feel like I kind of missed out on a moment in hip hop with him. And
I agree.
Yeah, I listened to it and I'm like, oh dang, and I was like really liking it. So I kind of felt like, oh wow, like, but again, it's not until someone explains you like all that stuff and tells you the story that you start to kind of like realize like, oh, okay, maybe I was being too prejudgmental about this guy or whatever. Which,
like, full disclosure, I wanted Dior to be my first dance, but it got shot down.
I mean, also the Super Bowl actually made me go back in time. You know,
that was a good one.
Dre and Snoop.
Yeah.
You know, I play Still Dre for my daughter. She loves it. It's amazing.
Yeah, man.
That's dope.
Dude, I did the same. I did the same for my daughter, and she went bonkers.
I was watching the Super Bowl halftime show, and I look over. My daughter's over there dancing, bobbing her head. She's not even 4 years old. I was like,
watching 50, and I was like, you know what? I want to listen to some Bizarre and D12.
Taking shots at 450, man. Come on.
No.
50 is literally 50.
Yeah, man.
And I, personally, I think what I would add too is, I've been back in the lab recently, so
man,
like you see that Brown Brothers poster behind Brothers poster behind us, and part 2 is coming soon. Me and Prophet have been in the lab a little bit, and we were actually just together on Sunday, and I was telling the guys that like. Everything we've put together so far has been very substantial, or not substantial, but full of substance.
Yeah.
We were missing that banger, and that came out on Sunday, so that was dope. I'm really looking forward to that. And I think this, man. You're a musician. Like when you're in that zone, you don't really listen to a lot of other stuff because you keep listening to the stuff that you did. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you do that sometimes, like with your beats and stuff like that. So every time that we get together and we bump a new one, all of a sudden it's like now I got to listen to like the 8 or 9 songs that we have together, like back to back to back to back nonstop.
That's what's up.
That makes sense. Yeah,
and just throw it out there, part of the podcast that we are establishing, you may hear a couple verses from some of our
esteemed colleagues.
Are you? Is Spotlight and Arson the only 2 MCs in the group, or?
Yeah. They're the MCs. We're Jesse and I are more the fans.
I'm the music aficionado. I critique.
Yeah,
but I don't rap.
Personally, I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out there. I think we need some more Spotlight bars.
Exactly.
I know, man.
I'm waiting, man. I'm gonna share this because I'm gonna throw Spotlight under the bus right now.
Yeah.
Investment bars. That was supposed to have Spotlight on it. Like that was supposed to have.
Technically,
Spotlight
I never got the invite. It was only until after it was done. Technically,
BS. I'm not gonna.
The music was sent to Spotlight.
He never turned in his verse.
Oh shoot!
So first off, let me clear it. So Spotlight writes his own material.
Yeah.
But the first one that I put out there, I actually wrote the whole thing, and I even went through it, and I bolded the parts that I was gonna do, and I italicized the parts that he was supposed to do, and we went to his house, and we were supposed to film it.
I think that's what it was, though. Ricks was like, "Yo, respect my pen, bro.
Right.
Like, don't ghostwrite for me."
An MC doesn't read ghostwritten.
Well, then we'll go ahead and we'll do the remix with your rhymes on it.
I think maybe when I come back from the wedding and it's Senor Light, it's
Senor Light.
Oh, man.
What about yourself, Dragga? What you?
Oh man, I mean, so like, I've been listening to that off-season Cole album.
My man.
That was a pretty good one. Obviously, Donda, don't want to overdo it anymore with Kanye.
Please don't.
Let's not talk about the documentary.
We can. The documentary is amazing.
I haven't watched it yet. No spoilers.
It's amazing.
It's really cool.
I haven't watched it yet.
I liked it. I still need to watch part 2, but I saw part 1. What else have I been? Obviously, the Balvin album was really good. I like that one. Bad Bunny. I heard the Karol G album. I thought it was pretty good too. I like Balvin's.
She came with fire. She came with fire on that album.
Really
I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised.
So and then a lot of that is just like I listen to a lot of my own playlists that I create on Spotify. So like recently I was listening to all this like West Coast gangster rap. I think because of the Super Bowl, you know what I mean? Like I know that there was a lot of acts, like people were talking about how Ice Cube could have been there and all that, even though I felt like, no, this is supposed to be a Dre like kind of family tree type of thing. Like that's why when 50 came out, it was kind of right because that was the biggest song 50 had, and he was a product of Shady Aftermath. So to have excluded him would have been kind of messed up, for us to kind of know the history of it. I'm sure this casual would be like, oh, we didn't really realize that 50 was that big of a deal for that song. But yeah, I did hear that, like, obviously that people are saying, oh, Ice Cube should have been on it and all that, but I don't think it was supposed to be that anyway. So, and I noticed the only thing I did feel bad about was that there was no Death Row songs done, but I could also understand like Dre kind of being like, let's not do that yet, even though Snoop owns it. But overall, yeah, I've been listening to just Cole, a lot of the West Coast stuff, old school West Coast stuff, especially because I was listening to this interview with Big Boy on Fuzzy's podcast, and it was cool hearing him talking about like his come up with Power 106 and everything. So it made me want to go listen to like West Side Connection and all that. So yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's what's up, bro.
I guess we'll end it there. Man, it was really good chatting with you guys. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I know that you guys have a lot coming up in store. If you guys want to go in and plug your socials, where people can follow you at, where people get the course at.
Yeah, absolutely. So go ahead and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Brown Skinvestors. Follow us there. Follow our hashtag Brown Wealth Matters. And yeah, we'll be coming March 16th.
15th, I think.
Download the Good News app to shout
15th, yeah.
15th.
Shout out to the Good News. Follow them.
That's actually a great point, by the way. So in order to listen to the podcast, you will have to download the Good News app. So it's not going to be offered anywhere else. So just, just throwing that out there too. But more info to come.
Exclusive rights.
Yep. March 16th. I apologize, but yeah.
And we
looking forward to it.
We picked that partnership because that partnership, they are a company that's brown and black owned. So it does fit within our mission.
And they're building from the ground up as well. So we want to be part of that rising tide,
Right on.
Yeah, we don't just talk the talk, man. We walk the walk.
For
Yes,
sure.
sir.
Well, thank you guys, man. Thank you guys for
thank
coming.
you,
appreciate
man.
you. Thank you for having us.
man.
If you ever in the valley, want to grab beer, let us know. We can hang out, man.
Oh, for
Appreciate
sure,
the
dude.
conversation.
Yeah, I need some backstories on the studio sessions with Mr. Rennie over here.
Yeah,
That's right, man.
There you go.
He was responsible for a lot of the jams on this poster behind
Yeah.
us.
That's what's up.
I'm still waiting for my Brown Brothers invite, but I guess I'll digress and just wait for investing stocks.
Well,
right?
once we know that you want to rap,
You two keep it on your own, okay? Stop wasting this time,
Yeah.
man.
No
Thanks
worries.
a lot, bro.
All right, brother.
Peace, man.
Thanks,
Thank you
man.
for
Have a
having
good
us.
night, man.
Peace.